Hey guys, this is Verneer for cardrunners.com. So now let's talk about 4-betting. Since you're opening around 16% of hands or so, you're likely to get a lot of respect from your 4-bets. So two implications of that. One, you should be 4-betting quite liberally versus loose 3-betting ranges. These are the players who are going to be they're just not going to have a hand very frequently. So hands that have blockers like Ace X, King X, some Queen X type hands, you're just going to be able to take it down pre-flop. The other side of that is if you have some tight regulars who are 3-betting you, especially from tight positions, then it's difficult to continue against them without anything, without kings or aces. So we should be 4-betting kings and aces against them for value. But in general, hands like ace-king in some spots are just going to be calls, and you don't want to be getting them all in for stacks against some tight players. In general, from under the gun, 4-betting is better than calling. It ends up being much more profitable once I run some filters in my Hold'em manager, and maybe I'll include those at the very end. So let's take a look at some of the selected hands that I have and talk about why I ended up doing what I did. Hand number 1, Ace King suited. Oops. There we go. I'm used to PowerPoint. So loose player 43-34. Puts in a small 3-bet, but I'm just going to end up 4-betting. I'm going to end up 4-betting this. Oh, another player overcalls. Yeah, so now I'm definitely 4-betting this against a 43-34 player. So I ended up just shoving because I didn't want to see a flop. And he ended up calling with pocket jacks. So fairly straightforward. Against this kind of a player, I don't want to be flatting. And the only decision was, do I make it something like 24 or do I just shove? I just wanted to end the hand right there, so I ended up shoving. Ace Queen. So this is one of those perfect spots where the player is 3-betting me from the button. Sorry about these windows, they're kind of annoying. He's 3-betting me from the button, which means that's where he's likely to have the widest 3-betting range. And he's 26-22 with a 3-bet of 13%. So just a very liberal 3-better. So in this spot, I just end up 4-betting as a bluff, essentially. Because I don't want to play my ace-queen hand out of position. I would rather just take it down right now. If it was ace-queen suited, I think I flat because it plays a little bit better post-flop. But I would rather just, I understand he's going to have some dominated hands, but I don't want to play out of position without initiative here. So I end up just 4-betting, and I end up taking it down. So next hand, ace-10 suited. Very loose player with a high 3-bet, 3-betting me from a steal position. So I end up 4-betting him, and unfortunately he ends up shoving, and I have to fold. But in this spot, with so everything about the setup says 4-bet. I have an ace blocker. If he calls, it's a suited ace that plays okay post flop. He's loose. He's 3-betting a lot. I'm under the gun. Great spot to be 4-betting. So squeeze spot. This guy's pretty tight, but he's still 3-betting 8%. So because he's squeezing, I end up putting a 4-bet in. The one problem here is I've got a short stack that might end up reshoving here. So from that sense, I'm not crazy about it. I would rather have something like ace-9 or ace-10 that plays a little bit better against his pocket pairs. But I should get a lot of respect from in this spot. So they both end up folding, which ends up working out. So in general, I like this. I wish the guy that called initially was not a short stack. Pocket jacks. Here it's just versus a short stack. I end up getting it in. So the stack size definitely makes a difference. Pocket jacks. So here, the player's really loose, and he's squeezing. So I don't want to call jacks and play out of position against two players. So I'm just happy to take it down right now. I think I've got the best hand. I end up shoving, and they both end up folding. I don't want to like 4-bet to something like 30 or something and have one of them call, and you know, weird stuff can happen post flop. So I would rather just take it down right now. I think I have the best hand. I don't want to be out of position. I'm just going to go ahead and shove it. Pocket jacks here. So this is, I'm kind of curious to see what happened here. So loose player, 3-betting a lot. I end up, okay, so I just end up shoving for value. He's on the deeper side. So he started the hand with close to 90 big blinds, and I've got 15 hands on him. So this is kind of a loose shove. Just in terms like I don't have that much info on him. I think flatting there might have been better until I have more, until I know more. He did end up showing aces. And I think in retrospect, I thought, yeah, I was a little bit too loose. I don't have enough info, and the stacks are a little bit too deep. Oh, aces, wonderful. I'm even excited to get him in a replayer. All right, so this is a spot where the reason I end up 4-betting here is because I'm almost positive that the guy on the button is 3-betting for value. So in that spot, I want to get it all in case he has a hand like ace king, where I can cooler him. I don't want to shove because I always want to leave them with a little bit of initiative. So I hope I made it like 29 or 30 here. All right, so I almost like clicked it back. He calls. Good flop for me. I bet small, which I like, and he shoves, and I call. He has tens. I don't like his, like, if he 3-bets pre-flop, he should be folding the tens. And I don't hate his 3-bet pre-flop, just because there's a loose player that's overcalling. But I think flatting there would have been better. But I think, yeah, the reason I ended up 4-betting is because I'm pretty sure he's got a hand. So I'm happy just to get all the money in pre-flop in case it's a cooler situation, where he has like ace king, and yeah. Or like, you know, if he has queens and he wants to go with it and the flop ends up having a king or an ace, then I'm just not going to get all his money. Ace queen. Relatively tight-ish player. 7.5, so definitely not getting out of hand. I think folding here is fine. I think if he's on the button, I can end up 4-betting. But I think this should be a relatively standard fold. I end up 4-betting and he ends up shoving, and I end up folding. So a little bit. He's on the tighter-ish side. 3-bet is standard. Definitely the spot in middle position where I'm going to be giving him a lot of respect, or I should be giving his 3-bets more respect. So I think all this should lean towards a fold instead of a 4-bet. But if I'm going to 4-bet, that's a good hand to do it with. Ace 7 suited. Now this guy's a lot looser, and he's 3-betting a lot looser. So he's 3-betting 11.8% of the time. And he's opening, or his VPIP and PFR is 26-21. So now I'm going to put in a 4-bet because he's got a much wider 3-betting range, and he ends up folding. So just a difference, you know, just notice the difference in stats. So This guy, the guy in the very last hand, was 22-16, 7.5. This guy is in the second hand, 26-21, 11.8. So the stats are, this guy's much, much looser, so a 4-bet's much more likely to be effective against him. King Queen, 24, 27.6, but he's squeezing on the button, so I've got to give him less respect because of those two things. He's squeezing, he's on the button. The 3-bet percentage I think is pretty standard, so he should be giving me like a lot of respect here, especially with the short stack in the middle. I'm essentially committing myself against the short stack, and with a hand like King Queen, I think this is a good hand to do that with. I'm happy to go all in against the short stack with a hand like King Queen. Much better than that Ace-6 suited hand from earlier. And they both end up, I think they both end up folding, yeah. So this is a much better setup to 4-bet kind of a bluff against the button, but for value against the short stack. Whereas the other one, not so much. All right, so a 3-bet from the small blind. I actually think this should probably be a fold. He's deep against the weaker player, so I don't think he's going to be isolating him all that wide. So I actually think his 3-betting range here is much more for value. So I think this is a fold here. I end up 4-betting just because anytime someone squeezes who's got a reasonably high 3-bet percentage, they're much more likely to be squeezing wide or 3-betting wide. But this guy's not getting out of hand 3-betting. He's in the small blind. He's deep with the mark, so I'm not crazy about the spot to 3-bet, but they end up or the spot to 4-bet, but they both end up folding. So the result was good. I don't think this was a great spot to do it. King Queen. I get shoved by the short stack, so now I'm going to isolate the short stack. I make it 18, but I should probably make it. I should make it more here. I get a call from one of the. It looks like this just looks like a great table. Get a call from one of the weaker players. They both look like they're weaker players. Good flop for me. Bet 24, half pot. He folds, and I'm up against the King 3. So I got my money in really bad there on the flop against him. I think in terms of the way that it calculates the EV was not a very good EV for me once the cards were shown. But pre-flop I had him crushed. Just kind of a funny flop the way that went down. Was not expecting that. Queen Jack suited. 3-bet from a looser-ish player. 27-22, definitely on the loose side. 7.7, pretty standard 3-bet. And he's 3-betting me from the cutoff, so I expect him to be a little bit wider there. The button's definitely the spot where the player's most likely to be wide. But I think there's enough going on here with his looseness and the cutoff that I can 4-bet profitably and get him to fold. King Queen. Great spot to be 4-bet bluffing from the button. High 3-bet percentage. Pretty loose player. Unfortunately, he ended up having a hand this time, and I ended up having to fold. But this is like the perfect setup for a 4-bet bluff. I've got the blockers. I've got the king blocker. I've got the queen blocker. He's on the button. He's loose. He's 3-betting wide. Just textbook spot to 4-bet bluff. Kings. The player is squeezing. He's on the button, but he's on the tighter side. 6.9, so not a very reasonable 3-bet percentage. And I don't want to call here and invite this other player to come along and get implied odds against me. So if it was just me versus the player on the button, sometimes I end up calling here, because I mean he's not a nit, he's just a tag, but I don't want to play out of position against two players with a hand as vulnerable as kings. So I don't make it a lot. The first guy shoves, the second guy shoves, so I'm going with it, and took down a pretty substantial pot the way that went down. If I don't end up if I don't end up 4-betting there, I don't take, well, on the turn I do end up taking Mansfield's stack. If we ever get there. Ace-Jack offsuit. So, relatively loose player, high 3-bet percentage. I would say, you know, 9 and up is pretty high. I've got the blockers. He's in the cutoff, so definitely a spot where he's going to be opening up his 3-betting range. So again, very textbook spot to 4-bet bluff. I end up 4-betting, and he ends up calling. 4-7-5, a pretty safe flop for me. I c-bet, and he ends up folding. So I don't think we had too many post-flop spots here, but the 4-betting game is very often like you end up 4-betting, and they either end up folding or they end up shoving. So there's not a lot of calling involved, so there's not a lot of post-flop play to be had. Last hand, ace-5 suited. Same situation, high 3-bet percentage, 9.3. From the button, I have blockers. I will 4-bet, and he will fold. So I want to go over a couple filters. The first one, where I'm faced with a pre-flop 3-bet and I end up calling. Now I'm going to remove all my value hands, jacks through aces and ace-king, and we'll take a look at what that looks like. So looks like I am maybe up a buy-in or so, but the most important thing here is that I'm breaking even at least, right? So that's great, because that means I'm defending appropriately when I'm calling. Now with a 4-bet, same thing. We're going to go to advanced filters, called preflop 3-bet. We'll take that away, and we will do raised preflop 3-bet, which is a 4-bet. Hit OK. And remember, this excludes aces, kings, queens, jacks, and ace-king. So again, I'm breaking even. This time, my red line is going up, and my blue line looks like it's down. Looks like I lost a buy-in in there at some point. So in general, 4-betting, you can see I'm doing a lot more bluffing with 4-betting, which is why my red line is up. And I'm doing a lot more kind of calling for value in the right spots with calling, which is why my blue line is up. So in both cases, appropriate defending. I think I should be 4-betting more. Just kind of look for the spots that we discussed in the previous section. Now, just for fun, let's take a look at what happens when I add. I will select none, and I'll add jacks through aces and ace-king, and hopefully it's going to be a much better looking graph. So this includes 4-bets and flatting. So red line is up, blue line is up. I'm actually surprised at how break even this blue line is for a long section. I'm kind of curious what my all-in EV is. Watch it be down. All right, it's about, I'm actually running above expectation. So I actually think a lot of it has to do with the way I'm playing ace, king, and queens. I realized that I was playing it a little bit too liberally. So it looks like I'm up about $1,300. Let's look at what happens when it's just aces and kings. So with just aces and kings, it's slightly higher, which means that yeah, I was definitely misplaying some ace kings. I know I misplayed some jacks, and I know I misplayed some queens. All right, let's look at the last section. We'll talk about folding some hands. So the last section that I want to cover is folding the three bets. Now, because our opening range is so tight and our four bets get a lot of respect, you should not go crazy four bet calling some of the more marginal hands. So what I did was went through and for the filters did a pre-flop folded to pre-flop three bet, and I made that true. And for the hole cards, I selected nines through queens and ace king. So I'm going to go over some of the hands that I ended up folding. So let's, one second. We're going to select all of them and replay all. So I'm going to make comments on, whether I like the fold pre-flop or not. All right. So ace king offsuit versus a 21-16, definitely a tag. He's 3-betting 3.5% of hands from the small blind. So very tight 3-betting, and he's made it quite large here. So I think I've got reverse implied odds in this situation where if I hit my ace or a king, I'm not gonna get paid off unless I'm behind. And I do have position, but it's 9 more to call. I just don't feel great about this hand. If it was suited, I would call with that extra benefit of having a flush draw. But with offsuit, I think this is just a fine fold. So I ended up folding this one. Here is the next one, another ace king. Very similar situation, except we're a little bit deeper here. We're about 120 big blinds deep. So that might be a reason to call. But he's 17-14 with a 2.6% 3-bet. So just very, very nitty player. And against his range of 3-betting, the ace-king just doesn't do well. So I would call with any pair here. I would call with, pretty much any pair here. But ace-king I'm just not crazy about. Jack-10 suited I would even call. 7-8 suited. I would call a lot here, but ace-king is just not a good hand to call there. Ace-king suited. So I've got a raise and a re-raise. So against the first player, I'm playing that for stacks. Against the second player, once he kind of re-isolates, I'm just not crazy about playing ace-king all in here. So I don't think calling is good. I don't think 5-betting is good here either. So I think this is just a reasonable fold spot. We're 150 big blinds deep. He's only 3-betting 3.7% of the time. He's committing himself against the short stack. Just not crazy about my hand. Pocket nines. So I actually think this is a call. I've got a player who's playing very loosely, and another player who is I'm deep with, who's very loose as well. So this guy, the first guy's, the guy who ended up 3-betting is, he's relatively short, but I do think this is a call. I ended up folding, and I don't like it. I think if I call, the Great Escape comes along, and I've got position, yada yada. So I don't think that was a fold. Ace King. The player in the blinds makes it 15. He's playing 19-14 with a 5.3% 3-bet. I think this is a call as well. I'm not crazy about 3-betting this, or I should say 4-betting this. I think here a call is fine. His 3-bet size is quite big, but nevertheless, I think calling there is fine. All right, pocket tens. Villain makes it 16. He's playing 28-21, 7.3. I actually think this is a shove or fold type spot. I'm quite deep with this player who's the weaker player playing 55, 41, 9.1. So in this spot, I mean, if I call, he's probably going to call as well. I can't just call to set mine, so this is just going to be a tricky hand to call. I'm not crazy about 4-betting, so I think the best option, kind of the lowest variance option here, is to fold. If Cutman 193 made it something like 12 that I'm calling, but with that big re-raise size, the one merit I see for calling is that Magnet is going to come along. He doesn't seem to be folding much, and then I get to play in position against both of them. So from that perspective, I think calling is okay. I think folding is fine. I think I ended up folding, and everybody ended up folding. Ace King. So 3-bet, flat call, shove. I'm just going to fold Ace King here. And we had Ace King versus Queen 10. So definitely not folding against Dalo. But once the action went call, shove, I'm just going to fold my Ace King. Got $3 invested. So here, 3-bet. I would have called this original 3-bet, but once it's 4-bet by the player from the small blind who's 4-betting a tag, I'm just going to let ace pocket 10s go. Pretty easy fold. Then there's a 5-bet and a call, and I would have had a straight, and the river is Ace King. So really weird the way that played out. The 5-bet I just don't understand unless they have some kind of fun dynamic going on in this table between the two of them. Pocket 9s. I think this is a call as well. The player's 3-betting quite a wide range, and he's fairly loose. Yeah, so he is 3-betting from middle position, but I think calling here is fine. I think my hand is 10s. I'm definitely calling. Jacks. I'm definitely calling. 9s is kind of on the fence. 8s and below, I'm probably gonna fold. So I think calling here is fine. I think folding is fine as well. All right, I ended up folding. Pocket 9s get squeezed, and there's a short stack who's loose. I think this is just a fold. By calling here, the short stack can shove, and I end up having money that's squeezed in. So it's a pretty standard fold, and they get it in. Ace Jack versus Queen Jack. In the next video, we're going to talk about middle position play. So I'll go over a good middle position opening range, and we'll start by looking at single raised pots from middle position and post-flop play. So until next time, for cardrunners.com, this has been Verneer, and good luck at the tables, guys.